Welcome to another episode of ALPS in Brief, the ALPS Risk Management Podcast. We're recording here at ALPS home office in the historic Florence building in downtown Missoula, Montana. I'm Mark Bassingthwaighte, the ALPS Risk Manager, and I have the pleasure of sitting down today with a longtime colleague, Julie Patterson, who has been with ALPS for over 20 years now. Julie, before we get started, can you just give us a brief introduction, background to yourself for our listeners?
Absolutely, Mark. Be happy to. I've been here at ALPS for 20 years. Really have enjoyed my time here. It's a great company to work for. I'm originally from California, but moved to Montana to have a different lifestyle in 1990 and have stayed and never left and am not going to leave.
Yeah, that happens to a lot of us.
It does, yes.
Well, thank you for sitting down with me today. What I wanted to really talk about is looking at sort of the new lawyer situation, and going back many years ago. I'll sort of use me as perhaps the example we might talk about a little bit. But I was one of those guys that when I came out of law school, I hung up a shingle, and boy, can that get a little frightening and crazy. You sit down. You try to get some kind of business plan in place. You look at trying to, get some advertising, get your computers, get the office set up, all these kinds of things. And sort of the last thing that you're thinking about in so many ways is this whole issue of malpractice. I just, I don't have many clients yet, and I'm thinking here, but I know that I was not alone or unique in this. When I started thinking about that whole issue, you sit here and say, I just don't have the income stream yet to be able to afford this because, I know what medical malpractice premiums look like. Docs are paying at times $20, $30, $50, $100,000 a year in premium. And good Lord, I can't afford that. Is that sort of how the insurance marketplace in terms of the legal malpractice arena is priced? Or can you just explain to a new attorney, what am I looking at here?
I would be happy to, Mark. It's completely separate than medical malpractice.
Mm-hmm.
So take that out of the equation and think about protecting your future. Starting out, you're opening your first practice here. You may not have a ton of money up front, but still the premium is going to be probably starting out between $1,000 and maybe $1,500.
Okay, that's very different than what docs are paying.
Yes,
that's for sure.
It's very different.
Right.
It also depends on what limits you want to hold. It can go a little lower.
Yeah.
It can go a little higher. But know that carrier is going to have some premium finance terms to help you out, so that you're not paying everything all up front if you don't have the cash up front. And really, when you open your doors, you want to protect yourself and your clients and do it right as you start out into your private practice. Because if you wait 6 months or a year down the line and now decide to go and you've got some money in your pocket, now you want to purchase the malpractice, no carrier in the marketplace is going to cover your prior work history to the day you open the doors to the day you decide to get that policy.
Oh, wait, okay, so now that's important. I want to make sure that we're all understanding this. So if I sit down and I open up my office, hang that shingle, and I'm doing a lot of marketing, networking, doing the things we all try to do to get the name out there, and I start to have a little bit of work, not much yet, but I build up. You're saying that, so if I wait 6 months to buy my first policy, all of the work that I've done up until the day I buy that policy, I'm in essence bare on.
You are.
The policy
Exactly.
doesn't cover.
You're
Okay,
bare on that.
that's good to know.
On that time frame, because
Right.
a lot of new attorneys don't realize that when they open their doors.
Yeah.
And it's a really key important fact to, before you open your doors, before you take that first client, is to get that coverage in place.
Okay. When I think about, so I'm hearing that the premium is relatively affordable. Is that a normal kind of premium? Because it seems to me, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, I haven't been in this long, so my exposure, if I'm thinking about the insurance carrier, it's got to be pretty low. What Does
And
that play?
yeah.
What does that mean to you guys? Am I onto something here? That what happens to my premium in the early years?
Good question. You are onto something. So starting out, when you come into a carrier and they give you a new quote for a new policy, you have no work history behind that quote,
Okay.
that policy.
Right.
And so you're going to get a credit for having no work history. They know that when they're quoting you. And they're putting that factor into the premium before they release it to you.
Okay.
So as your exposure increases over the years, as your practice builds and you get more clientele, your premium is going to mature, or some people call it in the industry step rating,
Okay.
where
All
you
right.
can expect gradual increases over a 6-year time frame. So basically by year 6, your premium would have almost doubled.
Okay.
Provided the carrier has no rate increases, as well as you haven't reported a claim and a settlement has been reached in that 6-year time frame.
Okay.
So there are varying factors, but maturing rating is common in all professional liability policies, including those for
Okay.
lawyers.
So
Yes.
all things being equal, the good news is, I mean, I understand that my risk matures, but it levels out.
It does.
So I don't keep seeing these increases my entire life, because heaven, but okay, I got you. So roughly 6 years in, I'm considered fully mature. Okay. The final point that I'd like to just explore here a little bit is this, what is it, why do I want to have an insurance policy, in terms of what protection am I buying? Because I can see people sit here and say, again, I'm just starting out. I've got my computer system, and I got a good deal off online or whatever it might be, and it's furnished lightly. There just is not a lot of assets. I don't have tons of money I'm trying to protect in these kinds of things. So I could also see just waiting a bit until I'm more established before I start to think about insuring. But how do you respond to that kind of perspective? Do you see where I'm going with that?
I see where you're going with that, and I hear that quite a bit. But you also have to put yourself in where your future is going for your practice. And as you're starting out, it is a litigious environment that we live in now. And if you take on a client and for some reason a year out, you still don't have coverage, they're not happy with what they did, you have no coverage. You have nothing to help back you up in case you maybe did something wrong, or maybe you didn't do anything wrong, but still that's what you're paying for. You're paying for that peace of mind to cover your practice as it grows, and if a misstep happens along the way, that's where the policy comes into play for you.
Mm-hmm. So it's, in other words, I'm buying a little comfort. I can sleep at night.
You can sleep at night, yes.
Yeah. And I'd also think, I suspect, colleague to colleague here too, I think the other side that gets overlooked at times is we're also just trying to protect the client.
Exactly.
I want to work, if I think about who I'm hiring, I would want to work with a lawyer that's insured as opposed to one that isn't, because, again, sometimes just mistakes happen,
They do.
And
They do.
So I think it's important for all of us to kind of remember, not only are we buying peace of mind for ourselves, but we're doing, there's no disciplinary rule that says we need to do this, but it is the right thing to do.
It is
to
the
make
right thing
sure
to do.
that these
Absolutely.
clients are taken care of. Should some misstep happen? Well, I appreciate it. Do you have any final thoughts or anything else you'd like to add on this?
No, I think
All
we've
right.
covered everything.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you very much, Julie. It's been a pleasure as always. And I'll see you around the halls.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
Mark.
Well, thank you very much for listening, folks. That concludes this current episode. If you have any questions about the issues we've discussed today, please don't hesitate to contact me at mbass@alpsnet.com. We'd love your feedback on the podcast, to include hearing about any other topics or issues you'd like to hear us cover. Thanks again. Have a good one.